My name is Ellie. That year I had just turned 19 and completed my application to Vanderbilt University with an SAT score strong enough to compete for a full scholarship. But, before any school could send an acceptance letter, my entire future was decided. Right there, in the family dining room. Under the pale yellow light and those eerily quiet voices. "We need to talk," my mother said, her voice unsteady as she turned the rim of her empty wine glass. My father stayed silent, eyes fixed on the plate of untouched roast beef. Aunt Carol, as if rehearsed, sat upright in her chair, with a look of thinly veiled satisfaction. Before I could say a word, my mother continued. "It's about college tuition, honey. The financial plan." My heart sank. My parents had spent nearly a decade saving for my college fund, close to $70,000. Every birthday check, every summer job I took, went into that account. I thought everything was ready. I thought, Madison? My mother nodded toward Aunt Carol, who immediately cut in, her voice syrupy sweet but sharp as a blade. "My Kelsey has been accepted to Stanford. She really needs the support, Ellie. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." I froze. Kelsey, my showy cousin who did nothing but post party selfies and empty motivational quotes on Instagram, had just claimed the dream I'd been working toward my entire adolescence? "Wait," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, even as my fingers curled into fists beneath the table. "You mean, you're giving my college fund to Kelsey?" "We're not taking it, we're reallocating," my father said awkwardly. "You can still go to community college, then transfer later." My mother reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "You've always been independent, you'll manage," she said, as if that were some kind of compliment. "But Kelsey needs to focus entirely on her studies. She can't work while in school like you can." I laughed. Sharp and bitter. "So, because I'm capable, I get punished. And because she's incapable, she gets rewarded?" Aunt Carol took a deep breath, then delivered the line like a slap. "You're the practical one, Ellie. Kelsey is the one with potential." I turned my head toward the window, where darkness had swallowed the backyard. A squirrel was digging near the garden, unaware that someone's entire world could shift with a single conversation at a dining table. "How much?" I asked, not turning back. "How much of the fund did you give her?" 70,000, my mother whispered. No dramatic gasp, no apology. $70,000. Everything I believed was meant for me? Gone. As if it never existed. I stood up, the chair scraping harshly against the floor. "Does Kelsey know?" "She'll be so grateful, she's always looked up to you." Aunt Carol beamed. I didn't respond. I just walked out of the dining room, past the living room where Kelsey sat giggling at her phone, completely oblivious to the fact that her future had just been bought with my dreams. I stepped into my room, shut the door, and opened my laptop. I sat up straight in my worn-out swivel chair, hands trembling as I opened the file titled Startup Idea, Ellie's Plan. The one I'd drafted back in 11th grade and left untouched since. There was no room for hesitation anymore. If they thought I would back down, they were about to face a version of Ellie they had unknowingly created. Through ignorance and grave misjudgment. I started with what I knew best: math, physics, and Python programming. During high school, I had tutored younger students for free, simply because I loved the moment when something finally clicked for them. But now, that passion had to become leverage. I needed to build an online learning platform, not just to teach facts, but to train students in problem-solving the way traditional schools never did. I texted Mr. Grayson, my AP computer science teacher, who once said, "If Ellie ever launches a company, I'll be the first to invest." I hit send at 10:47 p.m. Less than 5 minutes later he replied, "Meet at Coachman's Brew tomorrow. Bring your draft if you have one. I've been waiting 3 years for this." The next morning, I threw on my backpack and walked 3 blocks to that quiet little coffee shop tucked in the heart of downtown Nashville. Mr. Grayson was already there, laptop open, notebook ready. As I stepped inside, he looked up and said only one thing: "Hello, CO." I pitched the platform layout: interactive interface, modular STEM courses, built-in progress tracking, adaptive quizzes, and, most importantly, tutors who were senior engineering students I would personally train in instructional skills. "It's not just about teaching," I said, "it's about inspiring. Each student gets their own roadmap, no templates. Grayson nodded. You're not launching a startup. You're redefining public education. Then he added, but, to launch in 6 months, you'll need hosting, a dev team of at least 3, and a starting capital of $15,000. I didn't have $15,000. But I had a sharp mind and nearly a year of experience as a private STEM tutor for affluent families in Green Hills. I would raise my rates. Work nights. Teach both online and in person. 1 student, then 10, then 15. I designed a logo, bought a domain name, and created a sample landing page. All in the late hours after community college classes, where I'd enrolled at the lowest possible tuition. Within 3 weeks, I made over $2,400. I'd never seen that kind of money in my account. That night, Mr. Grayson and I met in his garage, which he'd converted into a makeshift office. He placed a brand new hard drive on the table and whispered like it was a sacred pact. This is where Ellie Learn goes live. We divided the work. I handled content, he built the system architecture. I taught by day, coded by night, and kept a near-perfect GPA at school. While my peers partied, I was buried in lines of code. While my parents still believed I was struggling at community college, I had already reached over 500 trial users through word of mouth, each one paid. None knew who I really was. All they knew was that Ellie Learn helped them boost their GPA in just 4 weeks. One night, my phone buzzed with a notification. You received a Stripe payment, $1,200 for advanced math course. I didn't remember who signed up. I didn't need to. The system was alive. No longer just an idea. It was a functioning product. Ellie, Mr. Grayson said after a weekend system test. Do you know what you're doing? Getting even, I replied, then corrected myself. Rebuilding, from what they took. As I left his garage that evening, one thing was certain. Kelsey might have Stanford. But I had a strategy. And my anger had just become the most valuable business partner I ever had. 3 months after I typed the first lines of code for Ellie Learn, the platform was drawing over 2,000 weekly visits. The number of paying students kept rising, mostly from states like Texas, Florida, and New Jersey. I had just launched the advanced physics course, complete with interactive lessons and adaptive assessments, and within 2 weeks, that course alone had brought in over $6,000. I was still attending community college, still staying up until 2 a.m. tweaking the user interface, answering support emails, and optimizing our data storage. But every time I logged in and saw the revenue spike, I knew I was on the right track. I did everything in silence. To my family, I was still the frugal student, renting a cheap apartment and surviving on instant noodles at the end of each month. The reality was, I had hired collaborators across 3 time zones, paid everyone on time, and my business account had just been upgraded to preferred business client status. Something my mother could never have imagined if she still asked if I needed her to send me more cup noodles. I didn't hate them. I had just stopped being naive. One Saturday afternoon, my mom invited me home for a family dinner. I guessed the reason the moment I walked in and saw the table neatly set, soft background music playing from the Bluetooth speaker, the kind they only used when someone important was over. Kelsey was home for the holidays. She walked in wearing a designer dress, hair curled like a salon commercial. When she saw me, she grinned like we were best friends. Ellie, I heard you're still sticking with community college, huh? I nodded, unbothered. Mom, guess what? I went to this party at a classmate's house, and get this, the marketing director of a venture capital firm was there. He told me that if I start a project, he'd totally keep an eye on me. Aunt Carol clapped, face glowing with pride. This girl has real leadership energy. I stayed quiet, slicing my grilled chicken. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Stripe notification. $790 received for the STEM premium course. I let the screen go dark. So Ellie, my dad said, what major are you thinking of? What's your plan for the future? For now, I'm focused on studying and working, I said simply. My mother shook her head gently, half sympathetic, half dismissive. You always choose the harder road. But as long as you can get by, that's enough. Exactly, Kelsey chimed in. Not everyone's cut out for Stanford. But doing okay in life is still a win. I smiled but didn't respond. They had no idea I had over 6,000 active students. No idea my company had just been offered a strategic partnership by an education group based in Chicago. And definitely no clue I was negotiating a licensing deal, starting at $220,000. After dinner, my mom pulled me aside in the kitchen, her tone softer. I know you're still hurt about the college fund. But that's life, Ellie. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for family. Someday, you'll understand. I nodded. I understood, just not in the way she imagined. On the way home, I opened the admin dashboard on my phone. One of my new courses had just hit 500 enrollments. That month's revenue officially crossed $25,000. The next day, I sent my financial expansion plan to Grayson. Subject: Phase 2, National Rollout. His reply was brief. Ellie, it's time to register the LLC and prepare for a financial audit. This isn't a school project anymore. This is a real company. I stared at the screen for a long moment before booking an appointment with a corporate attorney downtown. I would take the train on Friday, wear a white button-down shirt, and bring along everything they never saw in me. Financial reports, partnership contracts, and the resolve of someone who had been underestimated far too long. My family still thought I was just trying to get by. But I was preparing to change the entire online education ecosystem. Kelsey could keep posting her Stanford Gala stories. I was about to walk into a private investor demo in Seattle. They still underestimated me. And that was my greatest advantage. I was reviewing our quarterly revenue report when I got a text from my mom. Family dinner tonight. We need to talk about something important. Come home early. I had just wrapped up an online meeting with the development team in Austin, where EllieLearn's third branch had opened less than 2 weeks ago. Last month's revenue hit $310,000. One of our strategic partners was preparing to sign an exclusive content contract for all public high schools in Tennessee. I barely had time for family dinners these days. But that night, something in my gut told me I should be there. Dinner began in heavier silence than usual. Aunt Carol was unusually quiet, my mom kept topping off her wineglass with water, and my dad tapped his fingers on the table throughout. Kelsey was nowhere in sight. Before I could ask, my mother spoke, her voice softer than usual. Kelsey, she's taking a break from Stanford. I paused mid-bite. A break? Just 1 semester, Aunt Carol cut in, her voice barely holding steady. She needs to find balance. The academic pressure was too much. I looked straight at her. Finding balance? Where, exactly? On a yacht or at a spa in Bali? No one answered. What about the tuition? My dad asked, eyes downcast. How much is left? Aunt Carol gripped her glass, eyes red. It's gone. All of it. The silence that followed landed like concrete on the table. I didn't speak, but in my head I tallied the numbers. 70,000 in tuition, plus living costs, spending money, business class flights, designer clothes, and nearly a year of luxury resort check-ins. All paid for with the money that was once mine. My mother turned to me, voice seeking sympathy. Ellie, you know how intense these top schools can be. She just couldn't keep up. I gave a dry smile. She couldn't keep up with school, but she had no problem keeping up with luxury spending. Ellie, my mother snapped, don't be cruel. I set down my napkin. Cruel? Because I didn't burn through someone else's future? No one argued. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification from our finance dashboard. EllieLearn had just crossed 10,000 paying users. 3 new employees had completed onboarding that morning. I stood up, calm and composed. Excuse me, I have a meeting. As I walked out, I heard my dad mumble to my mom, do we have any savings left? That night, I logged into the company's business account. Current balance? $842,000. I also held equity in a small edtech startup that had just been valued at $7 million post-seed round. I had preferred stock purchase rights. I had everything. Except recognition, from my own family. 3 days later I got a call from my mom. Can you come by this weekend? Something's wrong with the house. I paused. What happened? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Your dad got a foreclosure notice. The second mortgage we took out to help Carol pay for Kelsey's education. We can't cover it anymore. Whose name is on that loan? Your father's and mine. I sighed. I thought you said it was a smart investment. In the family's future. Please don't mock us, Ellie, she said. voice breaking. We need help. We're about to lose everything. I didn't answer right away. My mind flashed back to that dinner 3 months ago when my mother said, "Someday you'll understand." Oh, I understood, just not the way she hoped I would. "I'll be there tomorrow night," I said. "But if I help, I'm the one setting the terms." I hung up and turned to Grayson sitting at the desk in our new downtown Nashville office. "I need the best financial attorney in the region." He nodded, didn't ask why. The next day, I returned home in the silver SUV I'd purchased under the company's name. No flowers, no forgiveness, just contracts. I arrived home right on time for dinner. The air was heavier than before, though the table was set with the same care as always. Kelsey sat curled up in the corner, no lipstick, no jewelry. My parents looked like they had aged several years in just 1 week. Aunt Carol was absent. Maybe she knew there was no stage left for her to perform on. "You're here," my mom said, forcing a smile that couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. I pulled out a chair and sat down. "I brought a solution, but it won't be comfortable." My father stared at me. "Whatever it takes, just save the house." I opened my leather briefcase and took out 3 stamped documents, handing one to each of them. "These are personal financial restructuring agreements. I'll cover all current debts, including the second mortgage and overdue credit lines." My father's eyes widened. "You have that kind of money?" I met his gaze. "I have a company. I have revenue, I have legal representation." My mother clutched the contract, her hands trembling. "You're really going to help us?" "With conditions," I said clearly. "From now on, every expense from your accounts will be tracked through a system I've built. Any transaction over $200 requires my approval. All fixed assets must be itemized, re-evaluated, and set with usage limits. And most importantly, every family member must complete a basic financial literacy course within the next 6 weeks." My father leaned back, as if someone had knocked the wind out of him. "This is control." "No," I said calmly. "This is necessary oversight after the family drove itself to the brink of bankruptcy through a lack of discipline." Kelsey looked up, confused. "I have to take the class too?" "Everyone," I nodded, "including you. And if you want to keep receiving my support, you'll need to work a real job, on time, with income and accountability." "Doing what?" She blinked. "I went to Stanford." "You'll be working as an administrative assistant at Ellie Learn's satellite office in Chattanooga," I said, pulling out a folder. "Salary, $38,000 a year, 12-month contract, probationary clause included. If you quit, all financial support ends." "This is coercion." Kelsey was on the verge of tears. "No," I said, "this is your first lesson in consequences." My mother gently set her copy down. "You had all this in place already?" "Since the day you called me practical and handed Kelsey the opportunity I spent my whole childhood preparing for." No one said anything. I let them sit with the shock, then stood and stepped out to the back patio. A few minutes later, my father followed, the paper still in his hand. "Are you sure about this?" "I am. But only if you understand I'm not doing this out of pity. I'm doing it because I refuse to let anyone in this family keep dodging responsibility." He nodded, eyes red. "I'm sorry." That apology came late, but at least it was real. The next morning, I received an email confirmation. My parents had signed everything. The house would be temporarily transferred under the corporate entity in my name, shielding it from foreclosure for the next 3 years. I wired $78,000 to clear all bad debts and penalty fees. That afternoon, I drove to the law firm to sign the final paperwork. Grayson sat beside me, the one person who never left when things got hard. "You just saved an entire family," he said. But the price wasn't small. I stared straight ahead, colder than I'd ever felt. They need to know. Rescue isn't free. Especially when they were the ones who forced the practical girl into a fight. In my jacket pocket was the key to Kelsey's new apartment. A modest unit she'd be sharing with a nursing student. No Dyson hairdryer. No oversized LED mirror. Just an alarm clock, morning shifts, deadlines, and the performance tracking system I personally engineered. The power dynamic had officially flipped. 3 days after all legal documents were signed and the debts officially cleared, I sent one final email to Kelsey. Pack your bags. Your flight from Ubud to Nashville departs Friday. Ticket is booked, no other option. Attached was a detailed itinerary, her new living arrangements, work schedule at the Chattanooga office, personal development class times, and a monthly wage deduction breakdown, until the $70,000 she casually burned through was fully repaid. That afternoon, I visited the apartment I'd secured for her, a modest 2-bedroom unit in the suburbs. Her new roommate, Rachel, was a senior nursing student I had carefully chosen for her no-nonsense attitude and high tolerance for chaos. Be on time, pay your share, respect quiet hours, and clean your side of the kitchen, Rachel said, arms crossed as I handed her the lease. If you're messy, I won't be nice. When Kelsey landed, I personally went to the airport. No name sign, no flowers, no hugs. She stepped through the international arrivals gate with a scuffed luxury suitcase, platinum-dyed hair in disarray, and a hoodie from some overpriced Bali resort. Ellie, she started, voice a mix of confusion and awkwardness. You came yourself? Of course, I replied flatly. I needed to make sure you got in the car and didn't disappear. On the drive home, Kelsey tried to fill the silence with useless stories about spiritual awakenings in Asia. I didn't respond. I turned on a podcast titled Personal Finance in Your 20s and raised the volume when she began talking about waterfall meditation sessions with someone who called himself a healer. When we pulled up to the apartment building, she looked around, frowning. You got me a place here? No, I got it for a new employee. You're one of them. Inside, Rachel was wiping down the kitchen counter. Kelsey immediately lowered her voice. She's your roommate, and the person helping me monitor your responsibility rehabilitation. I laid a printed schedule on the table. Wake-up time, work shifts, meals, class hours. Miss anything during the first 4 weeks, the contract ends. And I'll escalate the matter of that credit card you opened under your mother's name. Her face went pale. You're not serious. I haven't joked since the day I lost my college fund. The first 2 weeks were rough. Kelsey showed up to work on time but barely engaged. Her reports lacked initiative. She always arrived last to her life skills classes and sat silently in the back. I didn't interfere. I let Rachel handle it. And Rachel was far from gentle. By week 3, I got an email from the HR manager at the Chattanooga office. Kelsey's showing potential. Last week she organized a birthday gathering for a new hire. Her own idea. I wasn't surprised, but I wasn't lenient either. I sent a single reply. Noted. Keep that up for 6 months, and I'll consider lowering the interest rate on her debt. On day 30, I made a surprise visit to the apartment. Rachel greeted me in pajamas, nodding. She's on time, doing her job, sticking to her budget. Still grumbles, but no more crying fits. Kelsey walked out of the kitchen in an apron, holding a spoonful of soup. Didn't know you were dropping by. But would you like some chicken soup? I glanced around at the spotless kitchen, then back at her. As long as it's not from a 5-star hotel menu. She smirked. Softly, but genuinely. It's from the discount aisle at Kroger. I nodded. Bonus point. That evening, just as I left the building, I got a text from my mother. Kelsey called and thanked us, for the first time. I turned off my phone and leaned back in my car seat. The rehab wasn't over. But the first brick had been laid. Family dinner was held at a small Italian restaurant on the edge of downtown Nashville. I didn't choose it for the food but for the space. Cozy enough to keep everyone seated, public enough to stop anyone from storming out too early. My parents arrived first, looking unsettled by the fact that nothing on the menu cost less than $25. Rachel came with Kelsey, both dressed in plain work clothes. Kelsey looked like a regular person now. No Chanel bag, no bejeweled phone case, just alert eyes and a cautious expression. The last to arrive was Aunt Carol. She wore a pale business suit, holding a Prada clutch, still clinging to the image of a senior consultant in what no one really knew. Ellie. She tilted her head with a paper-thin smile. It's been too long, everyone looks wonderful. Let's begin, I nodded to the server. No need to order. I'd already arranged a standard set menu for the table. No one complained. They all understood this wasn't a casual dinner. As the main course was served, I placed my iPad on the table and opened a folder titled Carroll Strategies, LLC. Do you know why I brought everyone here tonight? Aunt Carol sipped her wine. I assumed to celebrate the girls. Kelsey and Ellie? I tilted my head. Or maybe to celebrate how your consulting firm just lost its legal standing with the IRS after 4 years of having no actual business activity? The glass in her hand wobbled slightly, though she kept her voice steady. What are you talking about? I tapped a few times. The screen showed transaction records from the company's account. Flights, spa packages in Palm Springs, luxury car rentals, and transfers to a sub-account under the name Madison. A fake identity, she used, to shuffle money between 3 banks. Kelsey frowned. Who's Madison? I turned to her. A fake name your mom used to hide debt. Every dollar spent, from your Stanford tuition to your Ubud retreat, was logged under Professional Development Support for Emerging Talent. My mother's jaw dropped. My father leaned forward, hands clasped. That's how you qualify for tax exemptions under an LLC's Employee Assistance Program, I continued. But in reality, it was just a cover for personal money laundering. And worst of all, I paused, locking eyes with Kelsey. Most of it came from your original college fund, without you ever knowing. Kelsey looked like she'd been punched in the chest. You mean, Mom used my tuition money to cover her debt? Aunt Carol suddenly stood. It's not what you think. Then what is it? I asked, voice sharp enough to cut through the last layer of pretense. Did you push Kelsey into Stanford for prestige? Or because you needed a convenient excuse to funnel that money without triggering the IRS? The table fell silent. Kelsey quietly removed her napkin from her lap and placed it on the table. Did you ever think of me, Mom, or was I just a prop? Aunt Carol didn't answer. She sank back into her chair, eyes hollow. You once told me, sacrifice is part of family, I said slowly. Turns out, the only one really sacrificed was your daughter. My mom reached for Kelsey's hand, but she pulled away. Don't, Kelsey said. I think I understand now. I reopened my iPad, displaying a new contract. To avoid a full IRS investigation, I've negotiated an option. You will liquidate non-essential assets to repay the principal. Additionally, you'll participate in financial education outreach, hosted by Ellie Learn across 3 counties. As part of your formal remediation. And if she doesn't? My father asked. I tapped the table lightly. Then a sealed complaint goes to the IRS, with supporting evidence. She can explain it all in court. Aunt Carol didn't protest. Her head dropped, as if all the strength had finally left her. Kelsey stood. I'll sign away my inheritance if I have to. I just want out of this circus. I shook my head. You don't have to. As long as you stay in your lane. Be yourself, not the image your mom crafted to mask her debt. Dinner ended in silence. No forced laughter, no hollow compliments. Just the truth and the consequences each person now had to face. And me, for the first time, I left the table without rage, just a calm, final clarity. The past was done. Now it was time to rebuild. On something real. 1 year after that fateful dinner, Ellie Learn officially became one of the 5 fastest-growing edtech platforms in America. We had just closed our Series C funding round with a valuation of $1.4 billion. Instead of selling the company, I chose a different path, acquiring the very startup that once tried to buy me out. I paid in cash, secured voting control, and included one non-negotiable clause. I retained full executive authority. No one understood how a woman in her early 20s had managed to get a NASDAQ-listed board of directors to step aside. But they didn't know I had started negotiating the moment I was pulling all-nighters, just to finish my business management certifications. The day I signed the merger contract, Patrick, my strategic advisor and now official co-founder, leaned in and whispered, "Now they know who that community college student really was." I smiled and typed out my first internal email as CEO of the LE Corp education ecosystem. 2025 Vision: Learning isn't a privilege, it's the foundation of real value. And my family? They're still working under my system. Kelsey, after a year of honoring every condition, is now the project coordinator for our children's content division. Gone are her glamorous brunches and designer outfits. She wakes up at 6, joins meetings at 9, handles emails until evening. Just last week, she pitched a plan to expand our hands-on math programs to rural districts, and I approved it immediately. Not because she's family, because the plan was too good to ignore. And Aunt Carol? At first, she only attended our financial literacy classes to avoid prosecution. But somewhere along the way, she became a genuinely compelling instructor. "No one understands a mistake like the person who made it," she told a packed room at the Nashville Women's Center. When she spoke about managing money as a tool rather than a disguise, the room went completely still. Of course, I still monitor everything. Any expense over $300 from her restructured account requires my digital signature, but I no longer feel bitterness. I see it now as insurance, not revenge. My mom now carries a budgeting notebook, and my dad is enrolled in an entrepreneurship course for adults over 50. They've apologized, more than once, but more importantly, they've changed through action. 6 straight months of living within the budget I assigned. Not a single overage. The house that nearly went into foreclosure has been redeeded to them, but under a financial reinvestment trust clause. They understand now, ownership comes with responsibility. I've kept my rule. No one in the family can borrow money from me without going through the same approval process as any company employee. Not even my parents. One evening, I was in the top floor office of our new Chicago headquarters when Kelsey knocked. "You free?" she asked, holding a quarterly report. I waved her in. "You know," she said shyly, "I've been invited to speak at a nonprofit education conference in Indiana. For the first time. Not because I'm someone's daughter, but because of my actual work." I nodded. "That's the future we're building. That's the point." She smiled, eyes shining. "If you hadn't forced me to work that $38,000 job and share an apartment with a total stranger, I'd probably still be tanning in Bali." I leaned back in my chair. Rebuilding starts the moment you hit rock bottom. What matters is choosing to climb. Before she left, she paused at the door. "One more thing. I've saved enough to start a pilot program teaching financial skills to girls at a local shelter. I'd like it to be under my name. Can I?" I looked at her. There was nothing left of the entitled Stanford princess. In front of me stood someone who had learned, taken ownership, and now wanted to pass that power on. I nodded. "You can. But you'll submit progress reports. And don't go over budget." She laughed. "Got it, boss." The door clicked shut, leaving me alone in the glass-walled office, city lights glowing beyond. I opened the dashboard. Elicor had just reached 300,000 global learners. And to think, it all started with a dinner where they took away my future. Now, I design the future for hundreds of thousands. On a foundation I built myself. With rules I wrote. One quiet afternoon, I returned to the old house in Franklin, the same dining room where they once stole my college future, for what had become our quarterly family financial review. There were no complaints anymore. Dad had become proficient in Excel, Mom could reconcile bills and archive transactions to the cloud, and Carol, was folding flyers for her upcoming financial literacy session at the community center. "Ellie, you're right on time," Mom said, handing me a glass of iced tea. "We only overspent by $47 last month. Your dad's car needed a new battery." "Receipts and breakdown?" I half joked. Dad raised a hand. "A folder labeled Unexpected Expense. August." We laughed. But it wasn't just about money. It was proof that, after years of denial, each person in my family had finally learned to take ownership and live transparently. Kelsey was working part-time out of our Atlanta office, sending in weekly performance reports without fail. 10 full months without missing a single shift. And per our agreement, I officially forgave her remaining debt. The day I sent the confirmation email, she replied with just one line. "You may not owe me anything, but I'll always owe you the chance to start over." And I believe she'll hold on to that chance this time. I began the family meeting with a presentation slide titled 2025. Phase 3, Legacy and Community. "We've rebuilt," I said. "Now it's time to give back." I unveiled our newest project, Foundation, a scholarship fund designed to support 5,000 underprivileged girls in pursuing STEM careers. It would cover full tuition, learning equipment, mentorship, and even summer internships at Corp partner institutions. The room fell into stunned silence. Finally, Mom placed a hand on my shoulder. "Are you sure you want to go that big? It's a lot." I smiled. I was once denied because I didn't have $70,000. I never want another kid to carry that kind of weight. Dad nodded. "So, we're starting over. But for kids who don't even share our name." "That's exactly why it matters," I said. The following week, I stood on stage at the National Education Conference in Austin, introducing Foundation to over 1,000 principals and education investors. When I committed $20 million over the first 3 years, the room went completely quiet. Then, slowly, they rose and applauded. Afterward, Patrick, now our COO, came over, handing me a water bottle with a grin. "We started in a garage, coding through the night. And now we're here." "And we're not done," I said, eyes locked on the giant LED board displaying the foundation's logo. At the ribbon cutting of our first center in Memphis, I invited the whole family. Kelsey stood among the first cohort of mentors, clutching the student file she'd been assigned. Aunt Carol opened the event with a candid speech, publicly admitting the worst financial mistake of her life, and received genuine applause from the single mothers in the audience. After the ceremony, I walked through the courtyard where 15 and 16-year-old girls tested 3D printers developed by our all-female engineering team. One of them, with braided hair and wide, bright eyes, looked up and said, "Miss Ellie, because of you, I believe I can build big things too." I knelt beside her, looked her in the eye and said, "You don't have to believe in me. You just need to believe you deserve a chance." That night, back in the office, I opened the latest report. Corp was operating in 12 states, and Foundation had received over 3,800 applications in just 3 weeks. But instead of focusing on the numbers, I thought about the journey. From a girl once written out of her own future, I rebuilt not just a business but a family. Not through punishment, but through structure, boundaries, and unshakable clarity. True success isn't about being recognized. It's about watching the people who once failed you learn to live by the very lessons you were denied. That's the only revenge I ever needed. And it's permanent. Ellie's story proves that success isn't just about money. It's about turning pain into power and injustice into momentum. When her family took away her future, she didn't choose resentment. She rebuilt everything through discipline, intellect, and quiet determination. In real life, you don't always need to fight with words or control. Sometimes, just living true to your values is the most powerful response of all. What do you think about Ellie's journey, and how she rebuilt from below zero. Would you do the same in her place? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories ahead.